a writer of fiction and short fiction, an essayist of theological truths, the world-famous Chronicles of Narnia. This is 1938, C.S. Lewis, Out of the Silent Planet. So, full disclosure, Out of the Silent Planet is killing me. So, what seems to be common to all of the Inklings, the famous group of writers from England in the same period who were colleagues, Charles Williams, J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, when it comes to their written fiction, it is very complicated, it is very deep, and it is very universe building, as we would say in our time. Hey, I have tried to read Tolkien, but I try to get into an unexpected journey, and there's so many people to remember, and there's so much of a setting, and there's a whole cosmos involved with the Lords of the Ring. Amazon is learning this, much to their dismay now, because of their utter and intentional failure to stick to a universe that has a fandom. But it's a complicated universe that only some people, the chosen few, have consumed it all and are experts in it all. The writings of Williams turned out to be very much the same thing for me. Some of the chapters worked really well in The Descent into Hell, but others were just very, very long observations of the cosmos with philosophy and theology tied in. That works for a certain mindset. Boy, it's just not the way that I'm good at consuming written material. Like if C.S. Lewis, if you could take Out of the Silent Planet what I have read and put it in a film format, I mean, you could make a series out of this, something on Amazon or Netflix, if they could still make good stuff, make something good that lasted several seasons and get introduction into this universe. Like, growing up as a Star Trek nerd, that is a complex and rich universe with lore, though nobody cares about it now in the Kurtzman era. But you learned that a little bit at a time over a long period of time of being part of the franchise. Episodically, self-contained, you learned little bits here and there as you had a single contained story that was relatively easy to follow and get involved with. And I think even long and drawn out, it would work better with the visuals without you having to visualize it as it's being described. Everything from the alien flora, the plant life, how edible it is, what it tastes like, what each level of the planet's surface appears to be. As our protagonist Ransom is stranded on Malacandra and finding his way around, we have to learn a whole alien language and way of looking at the world. And all he's done so far is arrive there and hang out with the creatures, and now he's on his way to see Oyarsa. There's all of these characters. The Harasa, the Hadramit, I'm not even going to remember all the words. You end up learning a whole alien language and conceptualization of the universe, but very slowly. It seems like an eternity. It feels like you're living with the Harasa, and you're trying to learn, and you're trying to visualize these somewhat seal-like creatures with their weird gelatinous appendages, and it's not, wow, it's something. So like Tolkien, who built this elaborate, complex universe for those that want that. Doctor Who is another one that I barely have ever scratched the surface because it goes back so long, and that's a TV show. There's so much there. And now the way I hear that's been crippled, there's no reason to even bother going down that road. Why learn to enjoy the old good material? And Charles Williams, the brilliant metaphysical insights that he had that were somewhat more terrifying than the things that Lewis deals with. And yet it's so protracted and drawn out and long, and it's just so lengthy. If there was a key word to describe it, it would be lengthy, involved. You are very much pulled in, and you must learn the whole language. You're not able to appreciate the science fiction elements in passing. You're not able to pick up over 3 seasons of a show or 15 novels, short novels, the story of the Harassa and their culture. Instead, you're fully immersed in it with the protagonist, and you're learning it right there. The travels, the devices, the air quality, the way the water feels. This is all very fascinating stuff, but I got to tell you, it is very difficult for me not to fall asleep trying to read it. I think the second part of that is quite a bit of it is dated. Obviously, we end up, what we hear about what we would call Mars and Venus is so, it's a whole other set of, not just are those planets different, you could say this is a different universe, but the physics as we understand it and biomes as we know about them, or what we think we know, is completely different and almost cartoonish in the Lewis verse, if you could say it that way. So it's difficult to feel attached to it. It's difficult to get involved in it. It's a difficult universe. You've got to care enough about this character who himself is very dated and from a very dated time of Earth's history. Bless me, I had to sneeze. It has all of that sort of the feel of those H.G. Wells novels or Edgar Rice Burroughs, when you have it set in this early time period by writers who wrote in an early time period. And yet now at our time, that seems more, it's more what you would call in popular culture steampunk. That is somehow more approachable in its own way, whereas Lewis's character, plucked out of something like a Wellesian War of the Worlds time frame, but then sent to this other planet, he just doesn't, he's not the guide you need to learn all of the things that you're going to learn and have learned already about the Harassa and the Hadramit and the Alarsan and the Oyars and the Pitajuga, I can't even say it, I haven't figured out how to pronounce it. All of these multiple species. The theological and metaphysical sort of points so far in Out of the Silent Planet, part of the trilogy, is they're very obvious to anybody that is remotely familiar with Christianity. The Eldials, it's very obvious what they are, and so it doesn't have the very supernatural, unique insight that Williams did, despite the difficulty of focusing in Williams, and it doesn't have the full mythological quality attached to it that Tolkien has, but floating sort of somewhere in the middle. The Space Trilogy by Lewis just doesn't do it for me. This is famous literature, and I know a lot of people swear by it. To be honest, it just does not seem to have enough of either or enough of the right, whatever that recipe is, that even if I were looking for a deep, protracted, detailed universe, I'd probably spend more time on Tolkien than try to delve into this. It isn't there. It just isn't there. It's long and it's very detailed, and along the way, there's not adequate enough payoff to keep you wanting to stay awake at night and read this, and it kind of just puts you to sleep. Now I'll probably get hate mail. Nothing against Lewis. He was a great guy, but these were not the type of, and maybe I have an attention deficit problem of some sort or another, I don't know, as I have only one full novel to my record published on Amazon. You can find that on Amazon. Click on it and look it up online. The Life Tree Trilogy in one volume. Don't be fooled. It's one book. They're all in there. But I tend to prefer short stories because this very reason. It's very hard to stay focused on drawing out all of these details over time, but you can bring key ones back in a Bradburyan sort of fashion. The Bradbury collection of short stories that are linked together, things like the Martian Chronicles, that just works better for me, for my mindset. But hey, obviously I can't say C.S. Lewis is bad, but boy, I did not find the Space Trilogy to be enjoyable or satisfying whatsoever. I found it to be burdensome and a severe struggle. Let me know what you think below, and we'll see you next time. Peace and long life.